Well, it's just gone 900 hours Central African time. Welcome to your favorite weekly news analysis program, Media Monitor, right here on the SABC News channel. I'm your host, Alicia Jali. Thank you so much for choosing us. Here's what we have for you this morning. We start by discussing the outcome of the motion of no confidence and what the opposition plans are going forward. We also interrogate the pending assault case against Deputy Minister Mduduzi Manana and ask if he is a person who should remain in a leadership position. We also look into the various reports that have surfaced as we draw closer to the 5th commemoration of the Marikana massacre, and finally wrap up the show by, of course, discussing the fact that President Uhuru Kenyatta was on Friday re-elected, or rather on Tuesday to be precise, re-elected for a second term, and we ask if Kenya will not find itself in political limbo as the vote outcome is currently being disputed. But first, as always, you know what we do. It's 900 hours. Time to take a look at the news leaders this time. Former UN Secretary General Kofi Annan has cautioned political leaders in Kenya to be very careful with their rhetoric and actions following reports of the escalating post-election violence in the country. According to the opposition, more than 100 people have been killed since the violence erupted on Friday. The Kenyan government has disputed this, saying no protesters have been killed. Opposition supporters are disputing the election results, which saw Uhuru Kenyatta being re-elected. President Jacob Zuma has spoken out against NC MPs that voted with the opposition during Tuesday's motion of no confidence in him, saying they have brought that party to disrepute. Zuma was reacting to core party members' call that MPs who voted with the opposition should be fired. Now, those calls were made during the NC's cadre assembly in Parys in the Free State, and Zuma says discussions about the fate of those that voted against him will now be debated in tomorrow's National Executive Committee meeting. And Kaizer Chiefs has crashed out of the MTN 8 after suffering a 1-0 loss to SuperSport United out at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. SuperSport broke the deadlock as early as the 6th minute as Bradley Grobler picked up Jeremy Brocky, who skipped past Lorenzo Godinho and rifled past the ball past Itumeleng Kune. Chiefs struggled to settle in the early stages, but they went close to equalizing in the 22nd minute when Simpur Chabalala's effort deflected onto the upright. All right, let's welcome our guest. We're very pleased to welcome our SABC digital news producer, Ms. Pabalule Park. A very good morning to you, Babs.
Good morning, Alicia.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. On the main set, we do have political analyst, Mr. Levi Ndo, as well as Melo Mahulejo. Gentlemen, what a pleasure. On Women's Month, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Alicia. Good morning.
Pabalule, let's take it away. Let's show the man how it's done. Yes. What was leading in the digital news this week?
All right, so Alicia, on Monday morning, we woke up to the sad news of veteran actress Mary Makgato's passing. She fell, and then she went to the hospital, and then just as people thought that she was starting to recover, she unfortunately passed away. And I think a lot of people on social media were obviously very shocked because, I mean, we had other musicians like Tekeleko who passed away. We had actor Dumi Masilena who also passed away. So I think while they were trying to digest the shock of all that, and then she also passed on.
I mean, that's what normally happens in this country. Shocking events are always back to back. Let's look at the tweets that the people actually brought through in terms of this topic. Babalo, what do you have for us in that?
All right, and then we have a tweet saying, "I really don't know what to say now. Rest in peace, Mary Makgato. Thank you for blessing our television screens."
And she's got her pictures there, more pictures of her. Neopolis says industry legend Mary Makgato. It's one loss after another, as we've just said, Babal.
And then we have another tweet. This actually touched my heart. Mary Makgato, a true legend, used to watch her on our neighbor's black and white battery charged television set. May her soul rest in peace.
And there's Minister Natim Mthethwa there, the Minister of Arts and Culture, saying Mary Makgato's passing is a great loss to our arts fraternity and will always appreciate her efforts to nurture emerging acting talent. Very interesting and so great that the minister also weighed in on this. Let's have the gentleman weigh in on this. Very sad news indeed, Levi.
Sad indeed. You know, it came as a shock, especially during the Women's Month. I personally didn't expect this to happen so soon, and condolences to her family.
Absolutely. Melo?
No, I echo those sentiments. I think for me, one of the enduring memories is seeing her on TV. I mean, like, she's always one of those faces that we never really used to be able to identify by name, but you used to identify by seeing her.
Yeah.
And so it is something that is really sad.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's move on to the next big hashtag. And of course, let's hope that she may RIP. Babala.
All right. And then we have our Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Mduduzi Manana.
Oh, yes.
He has been making the rounds on social media for a few days now.
Trending, yeah.
And we ran a poll on SABC News Online, and we asked people, what do you make of the delay in charging or arresting Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Mduduzi Manana, for allegedly beating a woman?
The numbers are in.
Yes. The majority, 69%, saying it's preferential treatment.
Yeah.
12% saying, let's give the law a chance. 8% saying, well, it's typical of the police. And then 11% saying, let's wait for the full story.
The nosy ones want to wait for the full story.
And then in terms of what people were saying on social media in reaction, obviously his actions were met with a lot of distaste.
Absolutely condemnation.
Condemnation,
as well.
yes.
Yeah.
And then just to read the comments, we have at Moses_Moyo saying, Mampara of the week, hashtag Mduduzi Manana, hashtag Women's Month. And then we have another comment from Mandla Mbandra saying, I can bet with my 6-month salary, Mduduzi Manana will never see jail. Which political figure is serving a jail term in South Africa?
I want to hear what Odes says. He says, now we'll see if at Mbalula Figile is a man of his word or just blowing up smoke with regards to hashtag Mduduzi Manana's incident. Very interesting. You know, it was very interesting how everything actually shifted into what the police minister's reaction would be. Let's take a look at that last tweet there, Babalo, before we get commentary from the gentleman.
And then we have TLC saying, every woman deserves to have at least one man in her life who terrorizes men who dare to assault her.
Absolutely. I totally support TLC's assertions there. Let's have a quick input from the gentleman. Gentlemen, what do you make about these developments? Levi, I know we're going to talk about this in broader perspective later on in the show, but let's talk about the digital side of it.
In South Africa, we're all equal before the law, and we need to allow the law enforcement agencies to act on the deputy minister, whether it was the deputy minister or anybody else.
Absolutely.
We need the law to take its course.
Mela?
I think for me, speaking specifically to the digital issue, is that the accessibility of social media and news and accessibility of government representatives via social media now brings a certain urgency about actions and what people expect to happen. And if our government and governance structures do not respond to that, then I think it sort of delegitimizes them to a certain extent in people's eyes. I think that's something that they need to manage going forward.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about it much later on. Babalo, let's look at the last big hashtag of this week. What could it have been?
Okay, and then the last one is obviously the failed motion of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma. It's the 8th one. We ran a poll again.
In secret, you forgot to mention in secret.
The secret ballot, yes. And we ran a poll.
So what are we looking at here, Bob?
And we asked, how do you, this was before the MPs voted. How do you want the secret ballot, hashtag no confidence vote against President Jacob Zuma to go? 16% saying Zuma must survive. 69%, the majority saying Zuma has to go. 9% saying Zuma is not the biggest problem. And then 6% saying, I haven't decided yet.
What would they need to decide, that 6%? I really want to know. Melo, what do you think?
It's a very interesting country, broad perspectives, and we're supposed pluralist in that sense. But I think obviously to the extent that people feel that Zuma must go, it's good that people are voicing their opinions on Twitter and so on. But the one thing that we must also remember is that there's a broad constituency within the country that is not on Twitter and that is not on social media. So that always has to get weighed up against such surveys.
Do you have any quick tweets on this topic,
Yes, we do have a few tweets. We have a very interesting image here saying hashtag Zuma vote. I always wonder how he always manages to survive. And then we have another tweet coming through from Wisani.
They says President Zuma survives, but the margin has significantly narrowed. The significance of this may not be clearer now, but it will be in time. And that was the debate that actually came out after this motion of no confidence. A quick last one.
And then the last comment we have from Florida Arma Petro saying, Dear South Africans, now stop accusing Zimbabweans of not being able to remove Mugabe. See your life.
Well, do you want to add anything there very quickly, Levi?
Well, the secret ballot was granted by the Speaker of Parliament. and we still have President Zuma as the President of the Republic. That is the most interesting part.
All right. Well, that's where we're going to leave it. Babalo, do give our viewers that URL where they can get all these interesting news and more.
Okay, so they can go on www.sabc.co.za/news.
All right. Well, after the break, DA to forge ahead with the motion to dissolve Parliament in order to trigger early elections. That and more coming up shortly after this break.
The Law Society has slammed notices sent to 4 universities to jack up standards or risk losing their LLB courses. The Council on Higher Education issued a stern warning to the universities to conform within 6 months.
I think it will affect the university. I think outside the law faculty, there's a funding issue.
It's been 112 years since Enoch Sontonga died as a relatively unknown composer, choir master and teacher. But today his legacy lives on through his greatest composition, Nkosi Sikeleli Afrika.
For all your news updates, stay tuned to Your World from Monday to Sunday.
Welcome back to Media Monitor. President Jacob Zuma narrowly survived yet another tense vote of no confidence motion, with just 198 ANC members of parliament voting in favor of keeping him in office. 177 of the opposition, including some ANC members, voted against President Jacob Zuma. Now, the vote of no confidence is the most serious attempt yet to unseat President Zuma after months of growing anger over allegations of corruption and a sinking economy. NC Treasurer General Dr. Zweli Mkhize says this past week's no confidence vote result is a wake-up call for the NC, citing that the ruling party should not be celebrating but rather thinks deeply and do great self-introspection on the current challenges within the party. Meanwhile, the Democratic Alliance has said it is pushing ahead with the motion to dissolve Parliament in order to trigger early elections in the country, despite the fact that many opposition parties have voiced their dislike for that idea. The DA is expected to table that motion next week, Thursday. Let's find out more in this clip.
Parliament should be dissolved so that the country can hold an early election.
As long as there are 200 members of Parliament, Parliament will be able to continue to function. We know that the ANC have 249 members, so a mass resignation will not affect the functioning of Parliament.
We can't support such a motion. We believe that it's not opportune to dissolve Parliament, and that would one would have to contemplate resources with regard to dissolving Parliament. Parties, I don't believe that at this juncture, political parties are ready to go for the election.
We also run the risk of making a very grave error here, that if we allow ourselves to turn every issue, every political disagreement into a vicious fight for political power, that we might end up reducing this very important institution, Parliament, and its work into a bondugle.
All right, gentlemen, I'm really eager to hear your reactions on how it went down during the secret ballot motion of no confidence, Mela.
I mean, obviously, it was very interesting. It was the most tense, I think, motion of no confidence vote that we've had in the country, because there was this added element where the likes of your Julius Malema, Musi Maimani's were saying that we're going to have a new president on the Women's Day after the vote, because now the NC MPs were going to sort of like defect from the party.
Sheer confidence, yeah.
And all of us, I mean, obviously now we're very much anticipating to see what would happen, whether the ANC members would toe the line. And on the actual day, then you had Secretary General Gwede Mantashe go and actually speak to the caucus and tell them that no, I mean, from media reports, he told them that if the ANC members were to actually vote Zuma out, to split the ANC apart and tear the ANC apart. And the fundamental reason apparently that he advanced towards that end was saying that there would be a stalemate regarding to who's supposed to take over from Zuma. So he's saying that it's rather better that we continue Zuma until December, then from there we can have the branches decide, as opposed to us now removing Zuma, and then now there's a stalemate now. Then once there's a stalemate, then we have to go to early elections now, because then Parliament cannot function without there being a president. Then once you have early elections, there's a possibility that the ANC will lose. So I think from that perspective on, these are some of the things that sort of informed ANC members. But on the other end also is the notion of Zuma and his, suppose, what Mbuyiseni Ndlozi called, I think he called him a constitutional delinquent. Yeah. His that constitutional court judgment saying that he sort of like broke his oath of office, and then members feeling that they need to hold him to that standard. So I found that the contrast between those two positions very interesting, that the ANC now are thinking about the welfare of the ANC, but on the other hand, they're looking at Zuma as this embodiment of the constitution that's supposed to represent everything that is I suppose, upright and aspirational about South African constitutional democracy, and people feel he's not living up to that.
Levi, talk to us about the 30-odd MPs from the ruling party's benches that voted with the opposition.
Well, this one is a clear indication that there are serious problems within the ANC. Yeah. But it's also an addition to say the voice that is saying President Zuma should vacate office is not only coming from outside. This voice is even there within the ANC. True. And then what then the ANC is supposed to do is to say, whether this issue is coming from the opposition or not, maybe it's time for the ANC to do something about President Zuma. But also at the same time, the ANC wouldn't love to be seen as a party that is being led by the opposition in terms of decision making. But the fact of the matter is that I listened to President Zuma yesterday saying that those who voted against the ANC should be punished. That was a secret ballot. Yeah. So nobody knows who voted for or against. Exactly. But the issue at hand is that the ANC must face the reality that says that the numbers of those who want President Zuma out of office is growing every day. And the ANC has to do something about it. Now, the vote went for President Zuma, but it does not actually erase the fact that he violated his oath of office. It does not erase the emails. It does not erase the state capture issue. Now, those are the realities that the ANC has to deal with. Whether they survive the motion of no confidence or not, that's another issue. The issue is the crisis that is within the ANC, the leadership, and the factions, and that is what the ANC must focus on.
You know, Levi, we've just had, I think, more than 5 meetings with the NEC and, you know, some of the high structures within the ANC to try and debate the issue of ousting President Jacob Zuma. Aren't those the party structures that are organizational structures that are supposed to be properly affected in order to remove the president?
I absolutely agree with you, Alicia. I think, obviously, if there's going to be any decision that is made, it has to come from the NEC. Yes. Once the NEC has taken a decision contrary, what that does, then it sort of like splits opinion within the party. And for me, I think the interesting thing, obviously the narrative that's come out of this motion of no confidence is the number of people that are against Zuma is growing. Yeah. But I actually hold a slightly different view to that. I don't necessarily think that the number of people that are against Zuma is growing. I just think those that were against Zuma originally now are starting to emerge. Absolutely. This vote of no, this secret ballot, what it does is enable some of them to start emerging. And I think the reason why then we ask the question is that why then haven't they managed to remove Zuma? It's because in the ANC, there's a broad anti-Zuma coalition. Yeah. Right? But within that anti-Zuma coalition, then there's a pro-Cyril Ramaphosa coalition, there's a pro-maybe Lindiwe coalition, and so on and so on. So people, they're not just looking at removing Zuma, but they're also thinking about then who replaces Zuma. Because then that's, I think, the thing that fractures the anti-Zuma coalition. Yeah. That is why they're not able to move forward, and that is why there's a stalemate within the ANC. So for me, like the secret ballot vote, I think, yes, to a certain extent, it enabled some of those people to voice their opinions, but I think we shouldn't read too much into it. On the other hand, if you actually look at it, you can say it's actually a bad omen for some of the other contenders, right? Absolutely. Because if you're the person that's campaigning against Zuma and you have failed in a secret ballot to remove Zuma, what does that say about your prospects in December?
I mean, what does it say about your prospects in December, Levi?
We still don't know who voted for or against Zuma.
Yeah. But I'm sure they have a pretty good idea. I'm sure the party is pretty much aware.
That was a secret vote. But I think what the ANC has to focus on now, which is a big challenge, is that the ANC does not want to be seen as a party that always recalls presidents. I think that is one of the challenges that they have. But then it was quite easy for the NEC to remove President Mbeki from office, who has, he was removed only after the judgment that said that there was an interference of government in court cases. But here you're dealing with a number of events that has happened with President Zuma, and there are difficulties in removing him out of office. And I know that one of the biggest issues is about the trend of always recalling presidents from office.
Yeah.
I don't know to which extent is that going to damage the ANC, but the more time the ANC spends with President Zuma in office, the more damage that the ANC is actually carrying.
Let's talk about this introspection that Dr. Zweli Mkhize is talking about, Melo. Let's put out all the issues that the ANC really needs to say, listen, guys, let's sit down and really have a debate about these issues because they are real.
I think for me, one of the core issues that the ANC is grappling with at the moment, and that issue comes out in the, I suppose, the talks that come out around parliamentary sovereignty, where people say that what kind of democracy is it where we can make decisions in parliament and people go to courts and challenge those decisions. Yeah. I think the fundamental tension that arises out of that is the notion of making majority decisions versus making majority decisions that are compliant with the constitution. I think the ANC is grappling and battling with that. And at the moment, what you start to have then is that you start to have people who feel that they have the numbers within the ANC to do certain things, but you find that those numbers are actually, those things are actually not progressive within the context of the constitution. And I think the issue of leadership election also rises out of that, right? Because there's people with numbers, but then you look, then these people are dogged with scandals and have certain things that are happening to them. Then do you elect that person because they have numbers, or do you actually find somebody that is a clean candidate that aligns with the values of the constitution?
And that's the question.
For me, I think that is a critical issue that the ANC is not focusing on. And then obviously on the other hand is that we shouldn't, I think I've already said this, that the ANC shouldn't become too introspective with regard to their own challenges and forget the economy. Because at the end of the day, if the economy tanks, then people are going to suffer and people are not going to vote for the ANC. That's just as simple as that, right? As long as people feel that there's general progress in the economy, there's employment, then people will continue voting for the ANC to some extent.
All right, now let's quickly talk about this, the dissolution of parliament motion that has now arisen from the failed motion of no confidence against the president. Levi, do you think it's going to reach any unprecedented heights, so to say?
Firstly, I must indicate that I expected that. But you know, if you look at the build-up towards the previous motion of no confidence, the opposition was saying that this is not about dissolving parliament, this is not about anything else, it's about President Zuma. And few hours after that, they're now shifting the polls and moving towards the dissolution of parliament. And that then will say to me that the opposition now seem to be having a double standard. They failed on the motion of no confidence, now they're talking about the dissolution of parliament. The energy that the opposition has on, against President Zuma is quite remarkable, and one must appreciate that energy. But I think the opposition must also take cognizance of the fact that there are all other challenges in South Africa that we're facing, and we need the same energy from the opposition to tackle the other issues that we're facing as society.
Thank you, Levi.
But we need to trust the opposition not to play double standards with us.
Thank you, Levi. After the break, we ask, should Deputy Minister Mduduzi Manana continue to serve as a very respected member of parliament with the assault case hanging over his head? Find out after this break.
What guides us? What leads us forward? Is it the advice of our elders? Is it the actions of our people? Or the voices of our citizens? Your country is guided by the voices of its people, and your broadcaster is dependent on your voice to guide it. Get your copy of the SABC's editorial policy and have your say.
Calls are mounting for Education Deputy Minister Mduduzi Manana to resign after he allegedly assaulted a woman at a Sandton nightclub last weekend. The incident went viral on social media, sparking a public outcry. The Deputy Minister has since apologized for the assault. He was arrested 5 days after the story broke. Manana is reported to have used the side entrance to avoid the media with police protection when he appeared out at the Randburg Magistrates Court on Thursday. He is currently out on 5,000 Rand bail and is expected to appear in court next month. Meanwhile, the presidency expressed confidence in law enforcement agencies dealing with this matter.
It's been 5 days since Mduduzi Manana admitted assaulting a woman at a nightclub in Johannesburg. On Thursday, he was officially charged for the crime and released on 5,000 Rand bail by the Randburg Magistrates Court. Yet, Manana continues to hold office as Deputy Minister of Higher Education and Training. This, according to the Lawyers for Human Rights, is a terrible indictment, not just on Manana, but on the president who appointed him and the political party they both serve.
We really would like to see Mr. Manana himself taking the decision to resign. And if he indeed does not take that decision, and at this point it doesn't seem likely that he will, we really want to see the presidency dismissing Mr. Manana from his leadership position. It is wholly inappropriate to have a man who has admitted to assaulting a woman in such a high leadership position in South Africa. And likewise, we would like to see the ANC, Mr. Manana's party, take disciplinary steps against him for this disgrace.
Bornman adds that they will keep a close eye on the case.
We will give the police and the courts a chance to carry on their business. And in addition to that, we're going to be putting pressure on the presidency and the ANC to take disciplinary steps as a matter of urgency.
Despite several phone calls, SMSs and emails over 2 days, our efforts to get comment from both the office of the president and the ANC on the Manana matter have come to nothing. And that silence from the president and the ruling party on this issue is not only deafening, it also means that Manana will continue to hold office as if nothing happened. Meanwhile, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate says it's not investigating the role, if any, of Manana's SAPS protectors in the alleged assault at this stage, as no one has as yet laid a formal complaint. Lukhanyo Chalada, SABC News, Parliament.
Let's address this first. I mean, a lot of people have been absolutely outraged at what they've termed preferential treatment. But I mean, it seems like this is a common thing. When you lay a serious charge or you bring up a complaint like this, it takes forever to be given the proper attention that it needs, Melo.
I mean, I think there seems to be a certain hierarchy of priority within the SAPS with regards to how they deal with crimes and the level of responsiveness. Yeah. And I think the other thing that actually makes this worse is the fact that this guy is a government official now. Because now, obviously, now you thinking now as an SAPS official or as maybe somebody that's sitting in an office that's supposed to issue the decision that go and arrest this guy. Now, you're also worried about your career, right? Do I need to first consult with the minister?
Aren't we equal before the eyes of the law? Weren't we just saying that just now?
We are all equal before the eyes of the law, but then at the end of the day, people are working for their families also. I think that's the other thing, that people are human, people are not robots. That is wrong, but that's reality. That is a reality. And I think for me, these are some of the challenges, the structural challenges that Mbalula has to deal with as police minister to ensure that we actually advance, like in action, this equality before the law.
Absolutely.
And it's not just something that is written on pieces of paper. And I think for me, this Mduduzi Manana thing, it sort of speaks to the issue that we raised earlier on about the challenges that the ANC has, right? This notion, this tension between people that seem to have support and constituents within the ANC and people that actually align with constitutional values and so on. For me, I think this issue, it shouldn't have gotten to this point by now. Mduduzi Manana should have actually resigned by now.
Absolutely.
He shouldn't have to be asked. He shouldn't, just from that incident alone, he should have resigned.
You know,
I think,
guys, yes. I really have to pitch in here because we all saw a media briefing where Fikile Mbalula made it public that should anybody be caught committing violence against any woman, they will make sure that that person never gets bail. Mduduzi Manana has admitted that he assaulted a woman. There's a video on social media that is out there. How is this different, Levi?
This is August, the Women's Month in South Africa.
Bearing that in mind as well.
Yes, you have got a deputy minister who would then go to an extent of assaulting a woman. And that is totally against the principles as adopted by this government.
Absolutely.
But I think at the same time, our constitution in South Africa is very clear. It talks about equality before the law. You expect Mr. Manana not to be treated as a deputy minister, to be treated like any ordinary citizen.
Yeah.
If you assault another human being, you need to be arrested.
Absolutely.
And I expect the police to do the same.
Yeah.
At the same time, I need to see what the ANC Women's League stance is in relation to this matter.
Actually waiting for
I've seen the Women's League making a lot of marches, making court appearances on issues that are perceived to be the violence against women. And I expect to see that happening as well. I was not expecting any form of a press conference from the police minister. I expected action to happen. That the deputy minister should be arrested and be brought to book.
Absolutely.
But I also don't subscribe to the fact that says that we need to make an example with the deputy minister. Because when you decide to act on the basis of making an example, you are no longer following the law, you want to make a statement. And I don't think that is the right way to go. But what you need to do is that let's allow the court to, the justice system to take its course and Mr. Manana be brought to book.
What do you think was handled incorrectly pertaining this case, Melo?
I think obviously there's a lot of confusion and lack of clarity around why Mr. Manana was not arrested when those charges were brought out. Right? Because usually with suspect and perpetrators, what usually happens is that the police, once there's a charge and then there's some sort of tangible evidence, then they go and arrest the person to bring them in for questioning, right?
Yes.
So for me, I think even Fikile Mbalula, he was in the wrong to come out and start issuing statements, because one of the things that he said is that, no, Mr. Manana is a known person, it's not like he's going to run away. But I mean, what does that have to do with the law, right? The fact that Mduduzi is known, that we all know him, that he's not going to run, what does that have to do with the law? The law states certain processes and certain procedures, and he should have confined himself within the realm of those processes and procedures, and he shouldn't have gone outside of that. But for me, the other thing that we're not talking about regarding this Mduduzi Manana thing is the general psychology that exists in society, where men feel that women are property that they own, that they can beat women.
Thank you, Melo.
Because I think for me, that is the core problem here.
Absolutely.
Because we can talk about individualizing and maybe exceptionalizing Mduduzi Manana's behavior. But this is not an exceptional behavior. This is not an individual behavior. It's pandemic across society. And then it's pandemic across society precisely because of the way that we become socialized to value women and to think about women. I mean, like you listen, like, I mean, I can imagine the conversation that was going on when that conversation was happening between Mduduzi Manana and that woman with the guys around him. I'm sure one of the guys would have said to him, no, clap, I'm fucking clap, or something like that. Because I mean, that is generally the attitude that we generally have
the people
women.
that are surrounding these people are the ones that are perpetuating this violence. They're not doing anything about it.
Exactly. So for me, I think as men also, we shouldn't just be looking to lynch and hang Mduduzi Manana. This is also, I think, a moment of introspection for us also. Is that what would I as a man have done differently in that situation? Because we are precisely socialized in these type of contexts, what is it that triggers a person to be able to do something like that to a woman? And I think we're not really having that conversation.
Let's have that conversation.
For me, I think also Mr. Manana is being surrounded by people that are a bit irresponsible. Because I expected some of the people that he was with, when they realized that...
They were supposed to call him out.
Yes, I expected...
They were supposed to condemn him.
They should have intervened and prevented that from happening. that says to me that he is surrounded by people that are like him.
That's what that's exactly what Melo is saying. It's a psychological thing in our society that it's fine if you mistreat women, everybody else will join in the fray.
I think it's also informed by the fact that when you are a man, you always feel that this woman is inferior and weak, and then it's quite easy for you to assault her. And that is a very, very wrong perception. That
Look, gentlemen, we're talking about how women are encouraged to report such cases. Now, judging from how this whole thing actually unfolded, do you think women will be ever willing to go out and report these matters when it comes to such incidents, Melo?
No, I think what it does is that it discourages you, because at the end of the day, when something like this happens to you, right, is that I imagine as a woman, as a person, you feel confused, right? Because the other thing also, on top of that confusion, you feel maybe a sense of shame that maybe I did something wrong to deserve this and stuff like that. So when you have an environment, the context, the social constructs and behavior of people and government officials now supporting this thing that actually, no, you're the one that did something wrong, it makes you hesitant to come out, right?
Absolutely.
Because now you feel there's this sense of shame, no, I can't go and actually report this. Or maybe if I go to the police station, the police will laugh at me, or that kind of thing. I think what it does, and it actually does broader damage to actually the cause of fighting for equality and ensuring that women actually come out and report these things. Because at the end of the day, people feel that, no, they'll be shamed, no, that they'll take the man's side, or it's going to be my word against that person's word.
Absolutely.
And I think that is the thing that we're getting wrong here.
Absolutely. You know, just on that note as well, it has, of course, surfaced that this was not the first time that Mduduzi Manana has been accused of assault. And of course, the DA has come out in lambasting him for that. That is, it's not the first time he's doing this. But how does a person such as Manana speak on a matter now relating to a video that surfaced this past week of a schoolboy assaulting a girl in school? Levi?
He must, his situation might assist us as a society. He might still be rehabilitated, and he can still go out and participate in the public awareness programs and teach other people the consequences of
rehabilitate him?
Take him to book. Take him through the rehabilitation processes, then he can still go out and teach other people. We've got a lot of people who are coming from prison, who are all out in society, who are motivational speakers because of the experiences that they went through.
I think just maybe one thing to add there. I think then there's also the risk that we need to manage is that we mustn't seem to be putting him on a pedestal, right, as if what he's done is nothing wrong. Right?
Yeah.
So I think he must go through that process where people see actually that this thing is wrong. By putting him on a pedestal too soon, I think it sends the wrong message also.
Absolutely. Don't put your hands on a woman, ever. All right, after the break, we talk the upcoming 5th commemoration of the Marikana massacre straight after this. You don't want to miss it.
Why is there a dispute over who is the rightful heir to the throne?
What I can say is that Masindi is a woman. She's a girl. She's a girl child. Because I think that if she was a male, there's no way that anybody was going to dispute the fact that she is the rightful heir.
Do you recognize her as your rightful heir?
Yeah, no, I will definitely say that she is my daughter. She grew up there.
What is the intention?
I want my throne.
Join me in Port Zedu live every Monday to Thursday at 17:30.
Well, a very good morning and welcome to AM News live at 10:00 hours across all Central Africa regions.
A fitting send-off for a revolutionary giant. A life dedicated in service of the people.
The result means that the Swallows are out of the ABC Municipal League and drop to the amateur 4th tier of South African football, the SAB League.
Tune in on AM News every Saturday and Sunday from 10 hours.
back with more Media Monitor. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has denied reports that he plans to visit Marikana on the 5th anniversary of the massacre next week, Wednesday. Now, this follows reports that the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, AMCU, President Joseph Matundwa had said the miners' widows have declared that they don't want Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa to attend the anniversary. If you remember, 34 miners were gunned down by police in 2012 at the Lonmin Platinum Mine during an extended violent strike. The miners were demanding a wage increase. Here's more on this clip.
Joseph Matundwa and Ben Magara seated side by side to talk about Marikana. What began as a wildcat strike at Lonmin in August 2012 culminated in an explosion of violence which left more than 40 workers dead, 34 of them AMCU members who were shot by the police. Matundwa says the strike, in which AMCU was demanding that wages be hiked from 3,800 rand a month to 12,500 a month, was justified.
The issue was about living wage or a salary, better my salary. I see the CEO is getting 100 million bonuses. I'm getting 3,800 a month. I'm living in the squalor. How can I change this? When they go to their then representative trade union is in bed with the employer. So they took it upon themselves. So the lesson furthermore has confirmed that AMCU should always keep in touch with its members on the ground.
He says it was worth it.
As the CEO of Lonmin can attest to that there is no worker who enter his premises, his employment, earning less than 10,000 as a basic salary for underground. I'm talking about the general worker. So therefore, any worker who might be potential to be employed at Lonmin, Anglo, Impala, will never be earning a basic salary less than 10,000 rand. So that means we managed to dismantle this apartheid structural system of economy of paying the mine workers. So that was an achievement.
Ben Magara was not at Lonmin at the time, but he feels strongly about it nonetheless.
I was in the platinum industry by then. I just was not at Lonmin. So the circumstances were clear. Employees were asking for a salary that employers were saying they were unable to pay. And I think an element of kind of winner-take-all drove some of the challenges that we saw in 2012. Sad as they were, I still believe that it has become an important catalyst for all society and all stakeholders to reflect and say, how do we make sure that this never happens again?
AMCU has said Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa is not welcome to attend next week's commemoration. His office says Ramaphosa was not planning to attend the event anyway. Mbongeni Muchwa, SABC News, Johannesburg.
How? So where did Joseph Matundwa get the story that Ramaphosa said he was coming to the anniversary, Levi? Fake news?
there is a lot of politicking going on, especially after the Marikana massacre. And, you know, to me, it always comes as if it's a very, very fresh thing, even though it has taken 5 years. But, you know, in South Africa, we have got a very good history of reconciliation. And I think it would be very, very important for those that feel that they've been seriously hurt by this event and they're still pointing fingers at other ends, to find ways and means and get closure. And I know, as part of the political game, you'll have politicians wanting to use this for their gains and for their popularity. But I think a lot of lives were lost. And it's important that in one way or another, people have to find ways of coming together, reconcile, and then move forward.
Melo?
I think for me, this Marikana thing represents a tragedy on many fronts, right? It represents a tragedy on the personal front to the extent that we have family members now who are deprived of people within their families who have been killed in this tragedy, right? So there's this person now that you used to sit with, maybe they used to annoy you the way they used to drink tea, or the way they used to chew, the way they used to laugh, they used to drag their feet maybe when they're walking. Those are the small things that we don't see, that we have deprived those families of those things, right? I think on that level, there's that sense of mourning from the families. On the other end also is that a lot of these people that were killed were breadwinners within their families, right? So now you have families now that have been deprived of breadwinners, now they're struggling now, and then they're looking for some sort of compensation from government. I think on the collective psyche of South Africa also, there's been a lot of damage now, because what we've done is that we've sort of, on a way, normalized state violence in South Africa, right? Is that the state can go out and kill people, and as South Africans, we just continue as if that's normal, right? I think that is problematic, because then, given the current economic challenges that we have in the country, the securitization and the militancy of the state action is just going to increase, right? Because as more people start to protest, now the more the state feels that they actually can perpetuate some of these things, because nothing happens from society. I think for me, and the final thing, that's perhaps one of the bigger tragedies of this thing, is that this Marikana thing, I felt it actually offered a moment for us to actually sit and talk about our economy and how to restructure our economy, given the fact that these guys now, they're looking for a 12,500 living wage, and we're not really having that conversation, right? It's almost like we've dismissed them, saying that, no, this is a crazy thing. The way the South African economy works is that, no, it's fine, we can earn 3,000 as a miner, and then we continue, whilst the other people are earning millions, right? So I think that, for me, presents a huge tragedy and a missed opportunity. And I think that conversation, much as we may ignore it, will come back to haunt us as South Africa, because whatever is happening with the economy at the moment needs to be addressed, needs to be talked about.
I mean, Ramaphosa has since apologized for his role in the events that led up to the Marikana massacre. What do you think moving forward should be his ultimate plan, or of trying to redress the situation, in particular to the widows, as you've just mentioned, Meadow, that there are people that are suffering? These were breadwinners that were lost. Levi?
Well, I think as a program that has been initiated in Marikana, as Milo has indicated, you have got breadwinners who have passed on. You have got families now that are left barehanded,
without fathers,
without any source of income. And that's where you need a strong intervention to say, to which extent then can we come in to assist these families so that they can also live a normal life. I looked at one of the articles in the paper this morning that says that the blood of those people who died at the Marikana massacre has actually brought in better fruits, because indeed there has been a lot of attention that was focusing on that area, and there is some sense of development that is going on, which might be some other form of apology on the part of the mine bosses and the mine owners to say, based on what happened during the Marikana massacre, this is how we come back to society and pay back. But also at the same time, the fundamental issues that brought in the Marikana strike should still be addressed. The low wages that ordinary mine workers are receiving are some of the issues that should be addressed. Look, these people only wanted 12,500 rands. And up to today, we still have people who are working in the mines who are not receiving that kind of a salary. And those are the core issues that must be addressed by those that are involved in that industry.
Look, let's move. Do you want to add something very quickly, Ben?
So for me, I suppose maybe on the part of Cyril Ramaphosa, obviously he's a politician, he's a public figure, and he's going to try and maybe gain a bit of political mileage out of this. I think on his part, perhaps if there were an entrenched level of sincerity, he would actually go out to those people and suppose on a one-on-one basis try and apologize to those people, right? As opposed to issuing these public apologies in the media and so on.
And nothing.
Much as he may feel that he's not responsible, if he feels that he's not responsible and he has nothing to apologize for, then why is he issuing these media apologies then? Because it's almost like he's using this thing as a political mileage, as a campaign tool. And I think that in itself is something that is also questionable, right?
Is it going to hurt his presidential campaign? Quick one, Levi?
Well, I think it actually depends. That is not a strong base. Maybe you shouldn't focus on that area. So.
All right, well, that's where we leave it after the break. President Uhuru Kenyatta won a second term in office during Tuesday's elections. However, opposition says the vote was rigged. Stay tuned for more details.
Jumbo Africa. Welcome to the newsroom. I'm Elvis Preslin.
Let us build our continent brick by brick, stone by stone, until we achieve.
Prasad asked the court to review and cancel the contract after adverse findings by both the Auditor General as well as the Public Protector.
Well, Christianity is under attack globally. It has been from the beginning of time.
Get all the dominating stories locally and globally on Newsroom every Monday to Friday from 9 a.m.
Welcome back. Protests turned violent in parts of Kenya after President Uhuru Kenyatta was declared the official winner of a disputed election on Friday. Kenyan police fired tear gas to contain protests which broke out minutes after the winner was announced. The protests erupted in Kisumu City, an opposition stronghold, and in the Nairobi slums of Massacre and Kawangware, where tires were burned and market stalls set alight. Kenyatta managed to garner 54.27% of the final tally of votes. Similar to the preliminary court, Odinga received 44.7% of those votes. And Odinga called the vote a charade, claiming that Kenyatta rigged the numbers. Nearly 80% of the 19 million registered voters cast their ballots. And Kenya's Commission Chairman Wafula Chebukati called the elections credible, fair and peaceful. Uhuru Kenyatta and everybody who supports the Jubilee Party is celebrating, and President Kenyatta has, however, called for national unity following the official announcement of his re-election. Levi, let's talk about the post-election violence. I was reading something and it says about 100 people have now been killed, but we're only getting reports of the confirmed 3 people, or is it 2 people that were dead during this protest?
Well, I think we need to start by looking at the build-up towards the elections.
Yeah.
And you could see the level of enthusiasm on the part of the politicians and the citizens themselves.
Yeah.
When you looked at the attendance of the rallies by Kenyatta and Odinga, both of them filled the areas that they were having these elections. But I think what is very, very important for all of us is to look at the institutions of democracy and look at the extent in which you respect these institutions and the outcome. The death of a lot of people after the announcement of the elections is quite regrettable. And I think our leaders, both who have won and those who have lost, should be very, very careful of the statements that they make after elections. In most instances in some African countries, immediately after the elections, you will get some people saying that elections were rigged or were robbed. In Maseru, there has been saying that someone has a USB that will just put on the computer and it will bring certain results. And that is what is bringing a lot of challenges in Africa.
Absolutely.
That our people who participate in the elections don't want to accept the outcome of the results. And that puts democracy in Africa on a very, very difficult situation, because we want to be seen to be embracing democracy, but when the results are not on our favor, we then come out and say we have been robbed and it has been rigged. I want to challenge the group that is supporting Mr. Odinga to say, bring proof that indeed these elections were rigged before you make this kind of statements.
But Levi, they're saying that Mr. Musando that was killed, the official, they probably got the passcodes from him. But I mean, this is all just speculation, Melo. But to go and kill over hundreds of people over speculation, it's not ethical.
For me, I think the Kenyan situation, obviously, you need to take it back to the original violence that happened
2007,
when, yes, when Raila Odinga was campaigning against then President Mwai Kibaki. I think then also there was this notion that elections are getting rigged, and then actually that Raila Odinga had won, but because Mwai Kibaki was in office, he's the one that actually now is peddling some of these numbers to ensure that he stays there. I think from that point on, Kenya should have come up with a more robust counting process, right? Because if we actually look at the structure of Kenya's economy, Kenya, like GDP is something like 25% agriculture, and 62% of the people work in agriculture, right? So it's a very agrarian society, it's very rural. It's not like somewhere where they were voting via digital channels or on Twitter or whatever.
It was an electrical system.
But obviously there had to be ballots that people are using there. So for me, in that sense, it's very difficult then for people to come out and say that you can rig an election in such a rural society, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I think those are the type of things that Kenya needs to come out and have a more robust counting process. But over and above that, I think the notion of Kenya is that if you look at this election, you had Raila Odinga and you had Uhuru Kenyatta contesting. But then if you go back, you had their fathers also contesting, where you had Odinga and Jomo Kenyatta, the founding president. So it's sort of like you have dynastic politics within the Kenyan country.
That's where we're going to leave it. Melo Makgoleho, Mr. Levindo, my analyst on the most topical news of this week, joining me on Media Monitor. And we are back with you same time and place. That is right here on the SABC News channel at 9 o'clock next week. But I'm back on top of the hour with more news, so you better stay right there.